welcome back to the Daughter Arise channel. It's a lovely day outside. I hope that you're enjoying the weather. So basically today I'm going to be sharing with you some little bits and pieces that are coming up. First of all, the Testimony to the Street event, which I will be doing on June the 3rd in Brixton. That is going to be where I share my testimony, share my story about how I went through sexual abuse and how it affected my life and how I've come through that. The aim of it is to be able to help people to understand that they're not alone in their struggles, that they don't have to live with the secret, and that there is help out there. You know, Daughter Arise, we're out here in the community. We're here to help people. We're going to be offering to pray with people. Those of us who are Christians, we're going to be giving information. And we're hoping that people who pass during that time will feel empowered by what I share. And in some way, maybe even if they haven't been through it, that they will share with somebody that they might know. Because as I said, the statistics have shown that 90% of children who go through sexual abuse, it's usually at the hands of somebody they know, love and trust. And statistics show that 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys also are victims of sexual abuse. And I think that everybody does know somebody that has been through it. 11.4 million survivors, adult survivors in this country, have been through sexual abuse, and the estimates are based on that 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys. But also as well, it probably could be even more than that, because those statistics are based off of that number that I have just shared with you. So we want to get out there and help other people. So I'm looking forward to it. I am nervous, but I believe that it's something that I'm called to do. And I'm really fortunate because I have women with me who understand you know, we need to do something for the cause, and that we're going to go out there and we're going to be together in a unit. So even if we're feeling a bit scared or, you know, lacking courage, we're there to help each other. So I've started a GoFundMe page because we needed to raise £210 for certain items. Those items are a megaphone for me to speak, leaflets and T-shirts, to be able to, so the volunteers will have something to wear. And yeah, we're going to be going out there and sharing, and also roll a banner stand for Daughter Arise so people can see that we have a stand and that they can come and approach us. And you know, over the next couple of weeks I'm going to be making some banners so people can see that we're actually doing something, rather than me just standing there with a megaphone. So people will be drawn in to come and listen to what I have to say. We're only going to be doing it for 2 hours, but I think that will probably be more than enough. And we're going to see what comes of that. I'm hoping that somebody's going to film a little bit of footage so that I can share with you on the video after that event, so you can get a feel of what actually took place. So if you would like to donate, please, in the description bar below, I have put the link to my GoFundMe page. At the moment I only need to raise another £150. Considering I only started this campaign on Sunday, to raise what I have already is absolutely fantastic. But we still need, we've got 3 weeks left. I believe that we can do it. I believe we're going to raise that money. So even if it's £1, please, if you can, donate, and I will keep you updated of the progress of that. So today I wanted to share with you something that's quite difficult actually. It is about emotional abuse. I went through an emotionally abusive and physically abusive relationship. And I was inspired to share this video today because of the women I know who I work with through Daughter Arise who have contacted, and also as well because of some of the young girls I have met who are in emotionally abusive relationships and also physically abusive relationships with guys, and they just seem to have like this kind of attitude where it's okay, you know, it is what it is. And I really wanted to do a video about that. I really believe that the things that I have been through are not, everything that I've been through will not be going to waste. You know, no experience that I've had has been in vain, and I really want to which I have, maximize upon those experiences by using them to bless other people, to teach and share kind of my insights about my experiences. I started up this whole YouTube channel because I wanted to use my experiences and give a perspective from somebody who's been through it, to help other people, because some people are living with things and they've just accepted it as normal. And I want to show them that, you don't have to. And if you're somebody that's been through some things, I hope that you can be encouraged and feel inspired by what I share. So I want to share with you about this relationship, and it's not easy for me to do that. When I was in my when I was a teenager, I was in a relationship with somebody, and how can I describe it? Well, I thought I was in love. This person was my first love, I would say. Well, I thought they were my first love. And I really loved them, I thought, at that time, being young, being naive, not knowing anything about love, I thought that I really loved this person. And I thought he loved me too. For the first few months, we were inseparable. We were always together most of the time. It was very intense. It was a very intense relationship. I wasn't a Christian at the time. We had a sexual relationship. It was a very, very intense relationship. And considering where I had come from, in terms of coming from, I was just coming to the end of coming out of the care system, and I'd come from a background of being sexually abused, where I wasn't really loved and was treated quite badly. To have somebody that wanted to be with me was just such an amazing feeling. I really thought, oh my gosh, this is the person I wanted to marry. I really love this person. But there was warning signs that things weren't going well in the relationship. There was hints right from the beginning, but I just felt that they could be overlooked, and I didn't know anything about love. So the relationship progressed on. We went out for 6 months, and the relationship ended. And it was just, always had different girlfriends, used to say things to me that wasn't really nice, would kind of pick on me about my hair or my clothes, and treated me really bad. And because I had such low self-esteem and low confidence, I just put up with it. So he would have his girlfriends. He would tell me that I wasn't good enough, that always made me felt like I was always short of the mark. And I couldn't understand why. I was so desperate for his love, for his attention, for his approval. I compromised myself, and this is something I talk about in my book Daughter Arise, which I wrote which was released back in 2010. I've talked about this experience with him. I just felt that he just didn't value me, he didn't respect me. But looking back, I can see that I didn't value and respect myself because I allowed him to treat me the way he did. Anytime he had an argument with one of his girlfriends, he would come back. We'd sleep together. It was made doubly hard because we had a child together and everything else. And I really wanted us to work because I didn't have a family. But now I can see that both of us were emotionally damaged by our experiences. And I want to really say that this is over 20 years ago now, so I'm not sharing this from a place of anger or of hate, because I've been able to forgive him. I don't have a relationship with him anymore. That is my past. But I have been able to forgive him. So I'm not sharing this information to hurt or upset anybody. I'm sharing it because I believe that there are things in my experience that can be learned. Every time that he would leave me, I would be upset. I'd cry. I'd be so hurt. It would heighten my episodes of self-harming, of drinking, of smoking. I sold myself away just because I wanted somebody to love me. I allowed him to do things to me that were degrading. and detrimental to my health. It was just very, very hard. He hit me on a few occasions. He talked down to me. And, you know, there were times in front of our child where he would say degrading things to me. And, you know, I'm not going to sit here and take the blame for his behaviour, but what I can say is that our relationship was very, very destructive. There was lots of arguments. There was lots of hurtful things that were said. I remember one time we went up to Liverpool Street Market, and you know, I thought I looked pretty nice, and on the platform he said something to me about my hair, and it was a really mean comment, and I just ran to the tube station toilet and started to cry and look in the mirror. This relationship emotionally drained me, physically drained me, and for 8 years, I mean, we only went out for 6 months maybe, but for the other 7.5 years, it was just us sleeping together, me allowing him back in, and I didn't have no value. He was the only family that I had. You know, he was the only thing that I knew that was love, and it was very, very difficult. I spent a lot of nights crying, wondering why he didn't love me. What was it about me that was so repulsive? You know, he belittled me. You know, I remember one time I got a job in the bank, and I was so pleased at my achievement, so pleased at the fact that that the employers, thought that I would be good enough to work in a bank, and my child was there, and I was like, yes, you know, I was excited. I was going, oh, you know, mummy's a banker now and stuff. And then in front of our child, he said, you know, mummy's a wanker. And, you know, it was these type of comments that were really, really hurtful. I really wanted it to work, but looking back now, he didn't love me. And I absolutely accept that, because I can see that I didn't love myself. But the comments, they really hurt. And even after when he hit me and stuff, I still went back. And I don't know, I was just lost. He treated me bad, and I know he treated me bad. I know he treated me bad, but the times when he treated me good, oh my gosh, it made up. One time treating me good made up for 50 times of treating me bad. And it was those crumbs of emotional affection and validation that I held on to. You know, I always thought that he would change. You know, I always thought when he had enough of the other girlfriends that he would see that I was good, that I was worth love, that I was lovable, but it never happened. And every other girl, he made me know that every other girl was better than me, you know. But then when he was with me, he was the sweetest person in the world. I'd cook his meals. I'd do all these things to show that I was worth being with, but it made no difference. And, you know, I don't have any regrets as such, because I'm glad I went through such a destructive relationship at such an early age. Because it taught me a lot about myself. I can see clearly how I ended up in that relationship. You know, here I was, a young, damaged girl. I hadn't even dealt with my sexual abuse that my father had done to me. And here I was, a damaged young girl trying to find herself, trying to find love. I wasn't even trying to find myself at that point. That came in my early 20s, but I was trying to find myself, trying to find affirmation from somebody to validate me. Because when you have been sexually abused by your father, somebody who is supposed to love you, cherish you, nurture you, as the first male in your life, once that has been damaged by abuse, oh my gosh, I can't begin to even, if you've been through it at the hands of your father, or even at the hands of anybody, you know what sexual abuse does. It destroys your self-esteem, your self-worth. Everything that I thought I knew about myself just became a bed of confusion. You know, here is my father who's supposed to love me, supposed to look after me, and he's abusing me for 5 years. I had no words to be able to express what he was doing to me, and it had a terrible toll on me. So, hence, when I went forward, at a young age, at 16, meeting this guy. He was charming. You know, he was good looking, he was charming, knew all the right things to say. I just thought, oh wow, this is what I need. This is what I've been looking for. And I held on to that relationship for dear life, even when it wasn't a relationship. Even when he called me a booty call. All these different things. But yet he kept coming back, time after time, telling me things about my body, degrading me, doing things to me that were really, really disgusting, and I allowed it. But I can see where the root of it came from, and that was in the relationship with my father. It's funny because the very first man that I ended up in a relationship with didn't treat me well either. But because I became used to the treatment because of my father, I put up with it. And anything was better than not being alone. I came out of the care system, I got my first flat. I didn't want to be alone. But I can see how all these different experiences helped me to get into that relationship and why it was so easy. If you're somebody that's been through, don't blame yourself, because one thing that I think I've learned is that, when you go through emotional abuse, is that a lot of the time it's rooted in low self-esteem and confidence. But if you've not been shown that or affirmed that in relationships, say for instance with your caregivers, with your parents, it can make it very difficult to decipher who is the right person for you, who is the right person that's going to love and validate you. If you haven't had a model there to help you with that, it's a case of try and see, and in that process it become disastrous, like it was for me. Psychological abuse, emotional abuse, is belittling, traumatizing somebody, making that person feel depressed and anxious, fearful. It's controlling behavior. Emotional abuse takes on all these different things. It is called psychological abuse, psychological bullying, emotional bullying, and it's all done in a way to try and keep you under control. I would have voicemails from him. He would shout at me on the phone, and all these different things used to make me feel intimidated. There were times when I would get into arguments with him back. I literally sold myself away to try and get this person's love. But after a few years, I started to say to myself, actually, enough's enough. And that point came a few years later when, but 8 years later. And I literally had to get to a place, and I think because I had the breakdown at 22 and I was in psychotherapy, and this relationship was still there on some type of level, it really did help me to be able to start to prise his fingers off my life. So things like allowing him to, when he used to be upset with me, because it was always my fault for him to behave the way that he did towards me. It was never his fault. It was never his responsibility. It was always my fault. I'm the one that got him to be angry. I'm the one that made him lose his temper. I'm the one that made him react to me like that. It was never his fault. And I believed it. But there came a time, and 8 years later, where I decided enough was enough. I didn't want the crumbs that he had to give me. And being in counselling and psychotherapy helped me to understand that I was worth more than that. I was shortchanging myself for a lot of years because of my childhood abuse. But I know now that I am worth more than that. And back then, I started to realise that I was worth more than that. So things like when he used to call and shout at me down the phone, instead of listening, I put the phone down. And for every time that he would ring, I would put the phone down because I didn't want to hear that no more. It was important for me to do that. Allowing him to come round for dinner. How easy is it? How many women that I know that were like me, who back in the day had baby fathers or boyfriends, that you had some kind of a connection with, whether it's through a child or some experience. And, they're not really doing anything for you, but they're controlling and they, are abusive. But we just put up with it, So things like allowing him to come round for dinner, I just had to stop that. stop having him in my house. In stopping having him in my house, I was able to stop sleeping with him, because that was the emotional dagger, really, that would be driven straight into my heart, because it's in sleeping with him the destruction would start. He would sleep with me, go about his business till the next time, have cutting remarks to make to me, and I just gave myself away to him, gave my way to him sexually and emotionally. I had to learn a lot of different things, and it all started in a process. So I started to prise his fingers off my life, prise the control off my life bit by bit. And yeah, it was a long process, and sometimes I slipped up. Other times it was easier, but I'm glad to say today that that relationship is behind me, and I don't regret coming out of it. I have been able to forgive myself for the things that I allowed myself to put up with. That's come through my relationship, obviously, as you know, with God, and also as well being at peace with myself, because I knew that there's a saying that goes, when you know better, you do better. And I didn't know how to do better for over a decade. But when I had the skills and the tools which counselling and learning about myself gave me, then I did better. And I think as well that, you know, there's some things that is important for you to know, signs that can help you to know about if you're in a relationship that is emotionally abusive. So as I said, you know, being emotionally controlling, belittling you in front of people, putting you down about your clothes, what you wear, your hair, whatever it is, using neglect, emotional neglect, ignoring your calls, blanking you as a form of controlling you. Because if you love somebody and they're ignoring you and they're not telling you why, obviously it's going to be upsetting to you. That is a form of emotional abuse. And it's also a form of trying to have a hold on you, humiliating you in front of other people, disrespecting you, have a lack of respect for you on different levels. You know, these things, as I said, is emotional abuse. Belittling you, traumatizing you, neglecting you, disrespecting you in front of other people, putting you down about your hair, your body, making you think that you've done something wrong when you haven't, you know, and it causes a lot of anxiety, and it causes a lot of emotional distress. Emotional bullying, emotional abuse can cause depression, anxiety, trauma. It can heighten certain behaviours that are already that you already struggle with. So for me, my self-harming, every time he would hurt me emotionally, I would go to the razor and I would start cutting myself. I was so angry, but I couldn't express my anger to him, so I'd take that anger out on myself. You know, it's important to understand this. You know, at the core of an emotionally abusive relationship, it is always to do with control, and lack of self-esteem and lack of respect lack of self-esteem and lack of confidence usually is at its core. You know, we're scared because we don't want to be by ourselves. We want this person to love us, and it's not that. We probably think, oh, you know, somebody else might be interested in you or something, and you want this person to be interested. You want this person to love you, even if they're abusive. We can't see that, and it can be really, really hard. Other things I think that is important for you to know, and that is that, you know, you can come out of this relationship, and it's something that I'm going to discuss in another video about things that can help you to come out of an emotionally abusive relationship, and some of the work that you can do to help yourself to be able to become emotionally healthy, learning to love yourself, okay, you might not love yourself at first, because I didn't love myself at first, but learning to like yourself, learning to respect yourself, learning to know about you, because I think for me, that is where things started to make a bit more sense to me, when I started to discover who I was, what I liked, what I wanted for my life, and willing to actually say no to certain things and learning how to say no, because that is something I struggled with in the aftermath of abuse, learning to say no and being okay to say no. Having that boundary to say, actually, it's not okay for you to talk to me like that. It's not okay for you to treat me like that. As I said, I learned a lot from that relationship, and as I said, I've forgiven myself and I forgive him for his treatment of me. This video, as I said, is not about being malicious. It's about learning from that experience. I remember looking in the mirror at myself so many times. I was so drained by life, and I was young, you know. I was a single parent. I was young. I had no real support, and being in an environment or in a relationship where it was just toxic and it wasn't productive to my health, my well-being. You know, we were both dysfunctional people, don't get me wrong, because I had all the dysfunction from my abuse. You know, I didn't know nothing about being in relationships. I just was getting it out of thin air. And, you know, he had his own dysfunction from his own past. So when the two of us came together, it was really, really unhealthy. But you need to know that you don't have to put up with emotional abuse. There's a fantastic organisation out there called REFUGE. They have a 24-hour helpline. I'll leave the link in the description bar below where you can talk to them if, you know, you feel that, you know, you're in a relationship and you need some advice, you need some help. And in the next video, I'm going to talk to you about you know, a little bit more about the signs, and also as well how to start to look after yourself, some things that you will do, you can do. So that's it for this video. I hope that you found it helpful. It hasn't been easy for me to share it. It's not like I want to go back in, that I'm going back into my past to try and achieve anything. It's because I see so many women, so many young girls who are in relationships, and you know, you've got a lot of guys out there who haven't grown up with father figures, or they've grown up in households where they've seen their mothers who have been emotionally and physically abused. They've become young men, and they get their relationship into relationship with girls who might have seen it in their household or don't have really good self-esteem or good confidence, and they get themselves into these relationships. And they get the idea of love and happiness from thin air, from what they see on the movies or in music videos or wherever it is. But it's not healthy. You know, we shouldn't be having young girls or, you know, young men. You know, we have young men with anger issues and different things that are going on for them. But we shouldn't be having young girls as well who are in abusive relationships. And guys can be in abusive relationships as well. There are girls who are abusive as well. But at the bottom line, it's emotional abuse is not good. So I'm going to talk about a bit more about how you can help yourself in the next video. If you like this video, please like, share, subscribe. Check out my website, www.daughterarise.org.uk, where you can find information about Daughter Arise and what we're up to. Also as well, please check out my blog. My blog is called Hope in the Future, and every month I write about different things to do with things that I've been through. And also as well, check out my other videos. You know, I talk about lots of different things, and I'm hoping that you can take something away from this video. Remember, hurt people hurt people. If you've been hurt, the likelihood is you're going to hurt somebody else in different ways. And what we're trying to do is to look at avenues where we can start to heal. Okay, so I'll see you in the next video, and